All right, this is my week 4 UFL power rankings, so let's get started here. At number 8, we got the Houston Roughnecks, unsurprisingly here. They're 0-3. They lost this week 34-20 versus the Michigan Panthers, so put up 20 points, which I think is better than they've done any week so far, but we let up 34 points, which is obviously not a very good look. Reed Sinnett was solid. He had about 200 yards with one touchdown, one interception. But he also had a rushing touchdown to go along with that as well, so that's good. Manuel Butler had 3 receptions for 63 yards. That's pretty solid there. This team, they were doing really good in the first half. I believe they were down 12-11 at halftime. So that's pretty solid. I think it was 20 to 14 at some or 18 to 14, I think, early in the second half. So then they kind of just let the game get away from them, let up 2 big touchdowns in a row, I think. So, allowing 34 points is never a good look. But your offense still looked pretty solid, I would say. And Reed Sinnett looks like he could be a good quarterback, but I've seen that your offensive defensive linemen are just simply not very good right now. So that's definitely a problem. You're not really getting any sort of pass pressure on your defender on the offense. So it's definitely a problem when you let the offense basically do whatever they want with the football. They're probably gonna get get a lot of points. Number 7 is going to be the Memphis Showboats. Showboats, they're 1-2 now. They lost this week versus the Stallions pretty badly, 33-14. Case Cookus was fine, 15 of 22 for 139 and a touchdown. So he was pretty efficient, but only 139 yards on 15 completions is pretty low. But then they also put in Troy Williams for the big part of this game, likely because they were just down by quite a bit. Because I haven't heard of any injury issue to Case Cookus. And he wasn't playing bad, so I wouldn't assume he just gets benched like that. But they were down, like 2+ possessions in the third and fourth quarter. So maybe they just put Troy Williams in because they kind of gave up on the game. But Troy Williams had 100 yards and a pick, so he wasn't great, but he was decent, I guess, for his first action of the season. But you guys, the Showboats were just outmatched completely. Coming into this, the Stallions have looked like the best team in football for all season long, so you would expect the Showboats to probably lose, but I would think they put up a little bit more of a fight rather than losing 33-14. Number 6 is actually going to be the Arlington Renegades. So a lot of people probably have them here at 7 because they still are winless this season. But honestly, their losses this season have been pretty impressive. I mean, the first week I think was like a 12-point loss or something, maybe a 13-point loss to the Stallions. So that's not great there. But the Stallions have beat like everybody they've played by like 13+ points, I think. And they lost last week by I believe only 3. And they lost this week only by 1 point, 29-28 versus the DC Defenders. So their offense actually looked really, really good, putting up 28 points. Their defense, a little bit concerning, let up 29 points again. Their defense has not been great all season long at all. But Louis Perez in their offense is pretty good. He was 24-40 for 290 yards and 2 touchdowns. So really, really good stats there. Davion Smith had 63 yards. Tyler Vaughns had 9 receptions for 109 yards and a touchdown. A little bit concerning though. They were up 28-18 with under 3 minutes to go, and they let the defenders score 11 points in those final 3-ish minutes. So it's definitely a problem. A problem that you need to address is your late game scenarios and stuff because there's no excuse to blow a 10-point lead with under 3 minutes left in the game. But definitely looked improved over last week. Number 5 is going to be the DC Defenders here at 2-1. They've been looking pretty good for the majority of the season. The week 1 was not great, but last week they looked a lot better. This week they looked really good as well. I think the Renegades are a pretty solid team. When they put up 29 points, won 29-28, like I just said. Really, really good performance there from their offense total, but Jordan Tayamu still has been fairly inefficient, but he still puts up pretty good numbers. Only 11 for 24 this game, which is not a good completion percentage, but he had over 188 yards with 2 passing touchdowns with another 53 rushing yards to go with it. So he had over 240 total yards with 2 touchdowns, but his completion percentage is just very low. But overall, he's still been doing really solid. And like I said, they were down 28-18 with under 3 minutes left to go, and they ended up pulling away with that victory, pulling out 21 or 11 straight points, hit a game-winning field goal with Matthew McCrane. So definitely a good sign to finish out that game. Their defense needs to do a little bit better. Losing, letting up 28 points is not a great look, but overall, still a good win coming out this week. Number 4 is going to be the San Antonio Brahmas, who are 2-1. Now they lost this week to the St. Louis Battlehawks, 31-24. Battlehawks have looked pretty good ever since the week 1 game. The Brahmas, 24 points is still solid for your offense. Your defense, obviously not great, allowing 31 points. Chase Garbers was pretty solid for you guys. 27 of 41 with a touchdown is good completion, but only 143 yards, passing yards on 27 completions is pretty poor. That's like less than 6 yards per completion, which is pretty sad. Also, Cody Latimer was really good, had 7 receptions for 58 yards. Was really good there. But another thing is with Chase Garbers, he did have a wrist injury, so he played the entirety of the game, but then it was ruled later after the game that he's going to be missing the rest of the season with, I believe, wrist surgery. So that's definitely going to be a blow for the Browns. I think he's been one of the better quarterbacks um, in the UFL this season. They do have other quarterbacks like Quentin Dormady, who's solid last year in the XFL, I believe, for the Orlando Guardians. I believe I got those teams right. He was pretty good last year there. They also have Tom Flacco, who is Joe Flacco's brother. So that should be interesting to see who they start next week. I would expect them to kind of run a dual quarterback system next week to get both those guys some reps and see what they look like in game scenarios. But definitely, I would expect a pretty significant drop off in production from the level of Chase Garbers was providing, but I would still expect them to be better than like the worst quarterbacks in the league. Number 3 is going to be the Michigan Panthers, who are 2-1 on the season so far. They won this week 34-20 versus the Houston Roughnecks. 34 points, I believe, is a season high for any team this season. Uh, so that's really, really good to see from their offense there. Let up 20 points on defense, which isn't bad. I believe they've averaged less than 20 points a game, given up roughly around there at least. So that's good to see there for their team right now. They're doing really, really good. EJ Perry was amazing this game, 16 of 19, so like over 80% completion, 208 yards with 60 more rushing yards and 3 total touchdowns this week. So he was, just amazing all week long. Marcus Sims had 4 receptions for 84 yards and a touchdown. I believe he had like a 66-yard touchdown catch where he broke like 4 or 5 tackles on that. Just ran through and outran basically their whole team. So that was really good to see there. Also, Kai Nakua, their safety on defense, had 7 tackles and an interception. He's actually the brother of LA Rams receiver Puka Nakua. And they also signed this week, Michigan Panthers signed Samson Nakua, which is another one of their brothers. He's a wide receiver now for the Michigan Panthers. So they got 2 of Puka Nakua's brothers on their roster right now. That could be a very good stepping stone for both of those players to potentially make it up to the NFL and maybe end up playing, on the Rams with Puka. Number 2 is going to be the St. Louis Battlehawks. They're 2-1. They won 31-24 versus the San Antonio Brahmas. So they did really good the last couple of weeks. I believe they put up 31 this week, and then I think they had 27 points last week. So after their 16-point game opening week, they've been averaging 29 points per game, which is obviously really, really good. AJ McCarron was good, 19 of 27 for 152 yards. It's pretty poor yards per completion, but still pretty efficient. He had 1 touchdown passing and 1 touchdown rushing, so 2 total touchdowns there. Was really good. Running back Jacob Sailors had 73 yards and a touchdown. So last week they had running back Mateo Durant, who came back from injury week 1, was amazing. This week Jacob Sailors was actually the best running back this week, so he was really good. So that means they got a really good, really solid running back core, which is good to see there. Also, receiver Hakeem Butler had 6 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown. He was one of the best, probably like a top 5 receiver for the XFL last season. So him coming into this week and kind of showing more flashes of what he was last week last year is a really good sign to see there for their offense and stuff going forward. Um, then number one is going to be the Birmingham Stallions. Everyone already kind of knew that. They won 33-14 versus the Memphis Showboats. One thing that is really important to note is that their quarterback play has been it's been like good this season, but it's been kind of inconsistent. They've been running a dual quarterback system the first 2 weeks with Matt Corral starting both games and Adrian Martinez coming off the bench and still getting, kind of a 50-50 split in action for at least week 2. But then week 3, they actually started Adrian Martinez, and he played the entire game. Matt Corral got no playing time because Adrian Martinez was just doing that good. He came in this game playing amazing. 18 of 28 is solid. 334 passing yards, which I believe is a UFL high this season. Also with 44 rushing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. He did have 1 lost fumble, but overall he had about 378 yards with 3 touchdowns to 1 fumble. So those are some really, really good numbers to see from Adrian Martinez, which, if he can produce anywhere close to that for the rest of the season, I would not expect Matt Corral to get much, if any, playing time going forward. I could see him, still getting a little bit of playing time here and there, especially if they're up by a lot or something late in games. But with the way Adrian Martinez performed this week, I would expect their dual quarterback system to kind of be dead, which it was this game because he was doing so good. But I feel like coming into the game, they still had the idea that they were going to do a dual quarterback system, but because Adrian Martinez was playing so good, they kind of just foregoed that. So looking at our standings here in the XFL, you have the Battlehawks at the 1 seed at 2-1, the Brahmas 2 seed at 2-1, and Defenders at 3 seed at 2-1. So three-way tie for number one over there. That's probably going to be a very tight race coming down to the end of the season, but so far that's a good look for those 3 teams. The Renegades, the defending XFL champions, have still yet to win a game this season, but I feel like they've looked pretty solid. So they'll probably get a win eventually here, but they just kind of had a tough schedule playing the Stallions. They played the Battlehawks last week. They played the Stallions week 1. And this week they played the DC Defenders. So they played, the 3 teams that they have played, all have winning records. So maybe I'm not exactly sure what their schedule looks like next week. Let me go look that up actually real quick. UFL week 4 schedule. Should be coming up here somewhere. Oh my goodness. UFL schedule. All right, let me look at their week 4 schedule here. So looks like the Renegades are going to play the Houston Roughnecks. So you got the battle of the 0-3 teams. I would expect Renegades to dominate that game and get their first win, so that's going to be good for them. But the USFL Conference, you got the Stallions there still at 3-0, Panthers at 2-1, Showboats at 1-2, and Roughnecks at 0-3. So you got a 1-game split between every seeding there. Taking a look at the week 4 games, we got the Showboats versus the Battlehawks. I would expect the Battlehawks to win that game, but the Showboats are pretty solid as well, so it should be a pretty good fight. You got the Defenders versus the Stallions, which very well could be a very, very close game. Depends on what Defenders team shows up, really. But the Stallions very well could be at risk of losing their first game this season. You got the Panthers versus the San Antonio Brahmas. That should be a really fun game. Just taking a look at how those teams both compare to the Battlehawks. The Panthers won by 2, and the Brahmas only ended up losing to them by 7. So that should be a very fun game between the Brahmas and Panthers, but it's also going to depend, how the Brahmas' new quarterbacks play out. And then, like I said, we got the Renegades and the Roughnecks, which I feel like the Renegades should win that game. But, yeah, that's going to be the standings here. Next up, we got our quarterback power ranking. So we got quite a bit of movement here. AJ McCarron at 1, Chase Garbers at 2, Louis Perez at 3, Jordan Piamu at 4, Case Cookis at 5, Reed Sinnott at 6, Adrian Martinez at 7, EJ Perry at 8, Jarrett Garantano at 9, and Matt Corral at 10. I also had a couple other quarterbacks that did get some playing time this week, but I didn't really want to include them here. I'm just going to limit this to 10 guys. Um, but we see a new number one. I believe Chase Garbers was number one last week, but AJ McCarron overtook him this week. It is going to be sad to see that the second best quarterback in the UFL is now going to be injured for the rest of the season in Chase Garbers, so that's a problem there. Also, AJ Martinez had an amazing week this week, but he's still only at number seven. So if he has another good week this week, I could very well see him moving up to number five or even number four. But I feel like these top three dudes here, McCarron, Garbers, and Perez, are the solidified top three right now. Then I would say Teamu and Cookis are in the next tier. Then Sinnott, Martinez, and Perry are the next tier. Then you got Garantino and Matt Corral. But honestly, I don't think we've had really any bad quarterback play at this point in the season. So that's really good to see from this UFL. I feel like in the XFL and USFL last year, we probably had at least one to two quarterbacks in each league that were just simply not good. That played a lot. So far, I feel like every single quarterback that has started and played a good amount of minutes has actually been a pretty good quarterback. Looking at our attendance here, so we have the Defenders and Renegades game at Arlington with about 8,000 in attendance there. The Showboats and Stallions for their Stallions home opener there at Protective Stadium had over 12,000 fans, which was a high this week, likely because it was their home opener. Then the Roughnecks and Panthers at Ford Field there in Michigan with only a little under 7,000 fans. So Panthers had a home game last week, and they had less fans at their home game this week. So kind of expected, but still under 7,000, I believe, is the new season low for the UFL this year, which is kind of concerning there. Then we had the Battlehawks and Brahmas at the Alamo Dome there in San Antonio with a little under 12,000 fans there. So it gives you an average of just under 10,000 fans, which is solid. You would like to see the average stay around the 10,000 fans, which is where we're basically at right now. Um, Obviously, whenever last week's average was almost 18,000, but that's because, basically whenever St. Louis plays a home game, they're going to have, 35 to 40,000 fans probably in attendance. So they're kind of going to skew the numbers. But as long as everybody else can average to around 10,000 fans, that's going to basically prove to you whether that market is going to be sustainable or not, at least for the current state of the UFL. Um, so I feel like our attendance rates are doing pretty solid right now. So let's go look into the viewership. This one is kind of concerning. The Defenders and Renegades game only got 534,000 viewers, which is a season low by over 200,000 viewers this week. It's nearly half that of what the Battlehawks and Brahmas pulled up this week at 1.023 million. So that's very, very concerning for that Renegades and Defenders game. But we also had the Showboats and Stallions had 837,000, so that's solid. Roughnecks and Panthers at 974,000 is solid. So we had a total average of about 842,000 viewers, which is a little bit less than last week, but it's about the same. Um, Ideally, you would like to see around roughly 1 million viewers on average, but the way this is looking right now, that's probably not going to be very sustainable. So as long as you can get roughly to the 850K plus, you definitely do not want to dip below that, but I could very well see week four going even lower than what it is right now. I thought that week three would have the best opportunity to pull in a lot of viewers. But I guess that the Masters happened this weekend. That probably took in quite a bit of potential viewers here for the UFL. But now from here on out, basically up until the playoffs, they're going to be competing with NBA playoffs every single weekend. So it's going to be very, very hard for them to continue to even draw in what the numbers that they are right now. I don't know if they're going to reach over 850,000 viewers in week four when they're got to compete with the opening weekend of the NBA playoffs. So it's very, very concerning there. It kind of makes you think about what's the best time to like run your season out because because you don't really get any sort of weeks to yourself. The first 2 weeks we're competing with March Madness, then week three is competing with the Masters. Week 4 through 9 are competing with NBA playoffs. Week 10 could still compete with NBA playoffs, but that they might get week 10 to themselves. Then their playoffs should be to themselves as well. But you only get maybe you got your three playoff games and then maybe your 4 week 10 games that you're going to get to yourself, which is only seven total games, which is very concerning. Um, when you're not pulling in a bunch of viewers, you might want to try to adjust your schedule next season to try to maximize viewership. So maybe like starting where the XFL did last year, starting right after the Super Bowl, could get you like the first 5 weeks of your season. Um, all to yourself before March Madness started. You'd just be competing with, NBA and college basketball regular season, so you could probably get a lot more viewers there than you are right now. And then by the time the March Madness and NBA playoff starts, you begin into the back half of the season with hopefully, a sustainable fan base for the first 5 weeks that could potentially be loyal and watch the rest of your season as well. But that also puts the playoffs of the UFL right in jeopardy going up against the NBA playoffs, so that's kind of a problem there. You could also try to start a couple of weeks later to try to get more of the back half of your season um, to go after the NBA playoffs. So you get that part of the season to yourself. But I don't really know what the best way to do about that is. But yeah, that is going to be the video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check back next week for an updated power rankings list. Make sure to check out my NBA videos